This is at Mostly Linux on Mostly Gaming for Sunday, August 12th, 2018. Let's roll. And we're back with another episode of Mostly Gaming here on our perpetually beta podcast, episode number 0.20. Nice round numbers if you're into numerology. Nice round number. That's 20 episodes of this beta podcast. And we're doing pretty well. Numbers are picking up. Thank you very much. Welcome to new listeners every week. Nice to see those numbers going up. This week we've got a lot of things on our plate. We're going to look at Nitrux, which is a Linux distribution. I think it's relatively new. It uses a pretty interesting desktop environment based on KDE Plasma. That'll be our distro of the week. We're going to look at Discord. It's launching its own curated game store. And a bunch of other challenges for Steam in general, which is kind of heading back with some leaks about a 64-bit client. Then we're going to take a look at our Discovery queue. We're looking at Dead Cells, We Happy Few, and Overcooked 2 this week. And then we're going to finalize the show with our Focus On topic, which is a look at the EA Origin Access service, the premium service that was just recently launched. We subscribed so we can tell you all about it. Our featured non-sponsored video this week is Blaster Master 77 and his Twitch stream of Dead Cells. He's been playing this through on Linux. There you go. You can see it up there. You can see it up there in the top right of your screen. We're going to let that run through. Blaster Master 77 is on Twitch as Blaster Master 77. He's always pretty kind of quick with new games. He puts the playthroughs up. Great member of the Linux community. Support him, subscribe, and so forth. And we'll keep his playthrough up there on the top right for those of you with a lazy eye. So that's what we have on deck this week. We'll be back in 10 seconds taking a look at Nitrux. And we're back here. Our featured Linux distribution this week is Nitrux. You can see it loading up on our virtual machine right now. We've got it running on 4 gigs of RAM and 2 virtual cores. So, think of it as being, kind of a low-end laptop specs, and it runs pretty well, I gotta say, on those specs. Let's put it up to full screen, and there it is. It's based on Ubuntu or Kubuntu, the KDE version of 18.04 LTS for on Ubuntu. The desktop environment is referred to as Nomad. We'll kind of touch that up. Got an interesting little logo here. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Bing logo, to be honest with you. I'm not going to spend much time explaining the installation. It was pretty straightforward. You download the ISO, you go through the options. If you've installed a Linux distribution before, actually even if you haven't, it's pretty straightforward. Seems to be pretty stable. I haven't had any issues with it, even on the light specs that I'm running it here. The App Store, the software manager, or the software center, is based on Ubuntu. However, it does not support snaps out of the gate for whatever reason. I was looking into that. They basically disable snap support in their software store. You can add that back in, of course, later if you like. The only kind of automatic kind of package system that they support in the vanilla flavor is app image. But I mean that could be a problem. I'm not a big fan of snaps myself. Yeah, I'll take that back. I find apps can make your system unstable. So I'm okay with not having that on. In terms of the aesthetics, if you like KDE, you will like this. Sorry, the desktop environment is referred to as the Nomad desktop. And I'm just looking here through a review by Martins D. Okoye on FossMint.com, who ran it through its test systems. He certainly did like the version. He's kind of waxing poetic about it throughout the article. I find I'm okay with KDE. I'm okay with GNOME. I go back and forth between them. This base configuration looks quite a bit like Elementary OS to me, very Mac-like in terms of the dock at the bottom. It's fully customizable. It gives you kind of quick access to your installed software and so forth. It uses the KDE built-in apps like Console and Dolphin and so forth. The default apps are pretty well the default apps that you would expect. And I would say overall, it's an interesting. Overall, I'd call this an interesting distribution. It's nothing out of the ordinary. To be perfectly honest, I would struggle to figure out why I would recommend this over Kubuntu or some other KDE flavor like Intergos. But they have made some adjustments to the desktop environment. They've got their own thing going here. If you're a big fan of app images or the overall organization, might be something you want to give a run on. So that's Nitrux Linux. It is, it's not high up there on the list of distributions if you go to DistroWatch, but good effort by the team there. And we'll keep an eye out on it as it develops. And, probably not for me. But if you want something a little different, little new and a little fresh, absolutely give it a run. All right, we'll be back in 10 seconds here with our news feed. And we're back. Episode 0.20. Our news feeds. Let's jump right into it with the first story here. The Discord is launching its own curated game store. So on kind of the ongoing threats here to Steam, which is going to be a big part of our news feeds today. This story is from Kotaku. Nathan Grayson. Discord is launching its own curated game store. And apparently they are targeting the exact opposite of what Steam is doing. This is a quote: "We'll be launching a curated game store experience similar to one of those cozy neighborhood bookshops with recommendations about the hottest and newest games for you, from us to you," the company said in an announcement, noting that big publishers like THQ and Deep Silver are already on board And I think Nathan kind of appropriately mentions that, you know what, THQ and Deep Silver aren't necessarily big publishers, but beyond the curated game store that they're offering, Discord is also jumping into the game rental business, game stream. Well, it's basically a subscription service. So they're going to take their existing Nitro service, which costs $5 a month, and heretofore, effectively gave you some little added widgets here and there. It was basically a way for you to support Discord, Patreon-like, let's say, without having to give any money to Patreon. And what they're doing is they're apparently converting that into some kind of a subscription service. To continue from the article, there will be indie games on the Discord store, and the company says it will open a new First on Discord program in which it funds indie developers in exchange for temporary exclusivity. The exclusivity window will usually last 90 days. Lastly, you'll be able to use Discord to launch any of your games, even if you didn't buy them on the rapidly expanding communications megalith. The new Universal Library feature will scan your machine for games and then handle booting all requisite launchers. So game streaming, they're coming, at the Steam store, kind of using their core strength to launch into it, and then offering a subscription service as well. Apparently, that subscription service is available already to 50,000 Canadians, of which I'm not one. They've got it as a beta up here. Basically they provide you games in a library, the same kind of typical games that you basically find on Xbox Live Gold or PS and Pro. The PlayStation Network gives away. It's usually the same games on every service, or the Twitch is offering something like that as well. So lots of subscription services out there. Our focus this week is going to be on EA's service too. So yeah, I mean this is kind of a strike to Steam, but it doesn't really end there, because there was another story this week that came out with Bethesda announcing that Fallout 76 is going to skip stream and launch exclusively in their own launcher. This story is from Ars Technica. The headline is "War Changes, Fallout 76 is series first in decade to skip stream." And then just basically reading quickly from the story by Sam Makovich. Bethesda has become the latest video game publisher to begin pulling a major game series from rivals download services. The publisher's latest announcement about the online RPG Fallout 76 included hints to a first for a 3D Fallout game. It won't be sold via Steam. This was basically suggested earlier on. There were some rumors, and then they basically came out and basically confirmed in a direct statement that the PC version of Fallout 76 for both the beta and the launch will be available only via Bethesda.net, not on Steam. Of course, there's no native Bethesda.net launcher for Linux. I've been able to get it to run though through Wine, so hopefully that won't be an issue. Interestingly, just going back to our Discord story, there is a native Discord app on Linux. It's basically web browser packaged as a native app, which I'm fine with that. No mention though as to whether we're going to get any Linux love on the Discord store, and I'm going to keep an eye out on it. See where it is. It'd be nice to get some Linux love over on the Discord side, because I think some of the first games that they're launching in their subscription program, if we kind of take a quick look, do have native Linux versions. No, that doesn't tell us what games are on there, but I did see a story out there that listed some of the games. I mean, it's the same games that I mentioned before. So things like Tyranny, I may be wrong on that one, but games like that are what are coming out on that service, and just like on the Twitch service, which doesn't have a native Linux client, but has a number of native Linux supported games on it. It'd be nice to have these guys providing that support. It would certainly be nice to have Bethesda providing us with native support as well, though I doubt we're going to see that happen. So 2 shots across the bow here for Steam, with a new competitor jumping in, and then another competitor jumping in, because Bethesda.net is kind of a competitor. You can buy the games on there, you can play them. It's another launcher that doesn't launch or need Linux. Epic, of course, has its own launcher now, so games like the hottest game in the world, Fortnite, doesn't go through the Steam system. By the way, for those of you that are big fans of Fortnite, go to Lutris. Apparently, it's now working on Linux, so you can get that to run. And last week we talked about some slightly misleading numbers about Steam having a big decline this year relative to previous years. So are all of these things adding up to problems for Steam? You know what? It's possible, and I like competition, and we've talked about that before in terms of looking at the alternative launchers out there. Steam has certainly not been ahead of the curve here. They're not being proactive. They're not being overly competitive. They're slow to react. They're not leading edge. But they may be starting to act. We know that they launched their their chat system. It's kind of like a Discord-like system that they've embedded. They've recently put that in the stable Steam channel, and now there's a story out there that basically says that we might be seeing a 64-bit Steam client coming soon. This story is by Michael Larabelle at Phoronix. He says that it looks like Valve could be prepping to finally ship a 64-bit Steam client, possibly coinciding with their long talked about Steam UI UX overhaul, which is very, very long overdue. The Steam UI is atrocious. Going back to the Phoronix story, Valve today shipped a new beta release with just one listed game change, added support for shipping different binaries to 64-bit versus 32-bit operating systems and Steam Self-Updater. That was the only change. The ability for the Steam update to ship different binaries depending upon architecture would be a prerequisite for being able to introduce a 64-bit Steam client. We'd like to see that. There is really not much need to be launching with 32-bit support anymore. Look, even Raspberry Pis and things like that are 64-bit these days. Let's move on. Time to get into the future. Drive the bus, Steam. And beyond these changes, it appears that we've talked about this before, that SteamOS 3 beta may be launching soon based on Debian 9 Stretch. So some activity coming out of Valve may be driven by this competition that is finally coming together in the marketplace. And as I said before, I would see that as being a very good, very positive, very good thing to see Steam getting off their butts and, getting their elbows up a little bit and competing, driving the market forward rather than harvesting their cash flow and waiting for the last possible minute for the threats to accumulate before they try to do anything. That's going to fail eventually. No, you can't maintain your market forever without being proactive. And that's our news feed this week. We're going to come back in 10 seconds with our Discovery Queue. And we're back with our Discovery Queue. We've got games this week. And the first game on our list is Dead Cells, which has been streaming up at the top of your screen there this episode. Dead Cells just came out. It's roughly $24 on Steam. It is available for all platforms, including including the consoles and so forth. We've been streaming it, but why don't we run the trailer here for those of you that don't know anything about it. Let's see what this thing is about. It certainly has been tearing up the charts. Let's run our trailer with some sound. So Dead Cells, looking at it from there, seems to be certainly very Souls-like, inspired by Dark Souls for sure. Dead Cells is a roguelike Metroidvania-inspired action platformer. You'll explore a sprawling, ever-changing castle. Assuming you're able to fight your way past its keepers in 2D Souls-like combat. No checkpoints. Kill, die, learn, repeat. So basically, Metroidvania Dark Souls. We've seen this actually before. This one is getting some excellent reviews though. Both of the scores up here on Steam are very positive. I've been watching Blaster Master 77 play through it. The guys on Giant Beastcast talked about it yesterday, again, waxing poetic over it. The developer is Motion. Well, I guess you know what? This is one of the reasons why. Let me just kind of go back here. If you're looking on the screen, so I've got this Steam app running at 4K inside of my 60-inch TV. I'm sitting about 5 or 6 feet back. I can't read this. I mean, and there's no way that I could increase the size of this font. It's crazy. Steam is Valve. You got to get on this stuff, man. You're gonna get your ass kicked. Anyway, the developer is Motion Twin, who also is self-publishing the game. Certainly something that bears support. Let's add it. It already is on my watch list. I'm going to basically take a closer look at it later when I have some time to give it its due. Looks good. I mean, you guys know if you've been watching my streams or my podcasts, I'm a big fan of Dark Souls. So this is right up my alley. But that's not the only game that released this week. The other one that released this week but is not yet available is We Happy Few. So they launched on Windows first, but they have committed and confirmed a Linux version for down the road. We Happy Few is by Compulsion Games. It was recently acquired by Microsoft. So Microsoft has not said anything about Linux, of course, but Compulsion Games have come out and confirmed a Linux release. It is 15% off right now. It is a $64 game. So I will add it to my wish list. I'll wait for it to come out on Linux, but I ain't buying this for $65. Reviews have been positive. I've seen some mixed reviews here and there in the mainstream press, but here on Steam, it is all good. Why don't we take a quick look at this at this trailer. All right. You know, it certainly looks very interesting with some pretty kind of, I mean, it's social commentary, and I kind of like that in games. Apparently, in this universe, they've developed some kind of drugs which can control or perhaps maintain or accentuate your emotions. People are hooked on it. Very, very much it reminds me of Bioshock Infinite, and in terms of the art style and the overall look of the game. Yeah, I mean, I've been following it for some period of time. I would pick it up. I'm not going to pay $65 for this game. It's just doesn't feel to me like it's something that I'm going to jump out and pay $65 for. Instead of paying $20 for 3 other games that may be better, particularly Dead Cells over here. Last game we're going to take a quick look at this week is Overcooked 2. I don't know much about this game. It has been getting also some very positive reviews. Let me take a look at the trailer alongside you here and try to figure out what is going on with this game. Cooking platformer. I mean, it's very unique from that perspective. Overcooked returns with a brand new helping of chaotic cooking action. Journey back to the Onion Kingdom and assemble your team of chefs in classic couch co-op or online play for up to 4 players. Hold on to your aprons, folks. It's time to save the world again. This came out August 7th by Ghost Town Games Limited. Mostly positive reviews. Full price is about $29. You can buy it with the in the Overcooked 1 and 2 bundle for a 10% discount on the combined games, which would set you back about $43. Full Linux launch day support as well. This is another game that's been very popular out there. I mean, it's certainly available for, I'm pretty sure it's available for everything, consoles, Switch, whatever. And a lot of these indie games are getting better coverage now that they're coming up and being available on the Switch as well. I guess it's just a market there that is very active for these types of games, and so they're being discovered better. And to the extent that many of the Switch games are developed with the Unity engine, we're seeing some great support for Linux on these games, and anything that basically makes it more viable for developers to create games from the revenue side, that then can be can provide Linux support for little to no cost. Makes us better over here in this part of the world as well. Overcooked 2 is going to go to my wish list as well. Looks very interesting and certainly worth a try. We'll be back in 10 seconds with our focus on topic, which is a look at the EA Origin Access Premium service. And what do we have here? This is EA's Origin service, which is basically a combination of an online store plus Electronic Arts. Games are all sold through here, and it's a third-party store. It is proprietary to Electronic Arts, and there's no Linux version. But as you can see here, I've got it running pretty well under DXVK 0.64 currently. And the reason we're showing this here is we're going to talk a little bit about the EA Origin Access Premium service. Okay, save the hate. I know, Electronic Arts and all of the hateful things that people say about it. Voted worst, least liked company in the history of America, whatever number of years in a row. Destroyer of Star Wars franchises. Look, I'm not here to debate all of that. They've got some good games. They've made some mistakes. And I try not to hold eternal grudges. I guess the issue here is for Linux users, given that there is no native support by EA on any of their games, no native Linux support, does this service, A, make sense if you're going to play it only on Linux? And B, what does it say about the greater trends in gaming rather than just the Linux perspective? So let's just begin first here with what Origin is. I won't get into a lot of details, but it's basically a Steam competitor, and it's been a theme this game about Discord coming in, Bethesda Net, the Fortnite Epic launcher, and so forth. There is a lot of movement away by the big publishers away from Steam. And the simple reason is they don't want to pay Steam 30 cents on the dollar for selling their own games when they could basically create their own version of a store and sell them directly to their users without having to pay the 30 cents to Steam. But also they get access to your data as well, which is equally important for many publishers, as saving the money that they give to Steam. So kind of straight up, Origin is not as good as Steam. I've complained about Steam as well, but Origin is not up to that level. It's getting better, but there's no family sharing, for example. There's no in-home streaming. They don't have the same breadth of software options that you have on Steam. It's primarily focused on EA's games, with some third-party games like The Witness or Sexy Brutale and so forth also there. So that is, that basically is what Origin is. But that's not really our key here. The reason I want to talk about this is this Origin Access Premium. And what it is, it's basically a service that you pay $20 a month on, or $140 a year, which if you pay it yearly, it works out to only about $11 a month, which is a terrific price given that Electronic Arts is giving you access to all of its games plus new games day one on launch. So Anthem, Battlefield 5, basically everything comes out day one. You get to play it, $11 a month. You can cancel it anytime. Sorry, $11 a month is the annual price. If you want to pay $20 a month, you can cancel anytime. I signed up for the service and paid the $140 to get the discount. But the trigger for me to decide to basically go this route is the fact that they are giving out the premium or deluxe packages of each of their games, inclusive of all of the DLC, downloadable content, and so forth. So you don't have to basically get the game like you do, for example, on all of the competing services, including the Xbox and the other services that are out there. They give you only the basic game. You get, for the premium service here, the full game with all the DLC. And that to me is a clincher. Okay, if I'm going to get everything and I never have to worry about downloadable drops or that stuff, and I'm paying $11 a month and I get all of your games and you give me the full game, I'm in. You've sold me, EA. Now, what was pretty interesting here about the service is that I already own a bunch of EA games that were in my library, and it was somewhat pleasing to see that the minute that I upgraded it over to the premium service, that the DLC that I had not acquired for all of my existing games immediately became available. So I could basically immediately go back, find my existing games, and upgrade them to the premium versions, and then play through some of the content that I had not yet played, which is kind of neat, when you take a look at your stuff and all of a sudden you have a whole bunch of new stuff. The other thing is the game selection is reasonable. I mean, there's a lot of games in the vault. This is just my games that I've decided to basically favorite or download. But I mean, clearly you can see here that there's probably more games here than I can ever play. The ones that I'm most excited about are Battlefield 5 coming out soon, and Anthem, which is coming out in February as well. Again, full versions of both of those games. I'm going to buy those games anyway, is the way that I look at it. In Canada, the base game is about $80. And the ultimate version of the game can be anywhere between $120 to $150. So paying $140 a year and getting everything is just a fantastic deal. So I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Now, from a Linux perspective, does it make sense? Yes and no. There are a number of games that work, and there are some games that don't work. And you're going to have to basically take your chances, because this is not a native Linux platform. And there's no guarantee, there's no support. You can't complain if something is broken. You have to rely on the community to basically fix it. Now, having said that, many of these games do work under DXVK. Your frame rates and your things are going to basically differ depending on what's happening out there. But, games like Battlefield 1, for example, do work. Darksiders works pretty well. All of these games. The only one that I haven't tested of these games right up here is Battlefront 2. Haven't installed that yet. I would love to see that working, but you're going to take your chances, right? So some games are going to work, some games are not going to work. The older the game, the more likely it is to work very well. New games might take a while for them to be fully compatible. That's basically the bane of Linux is not all of your games are going to work, but enough of them work, and I think the price is sufficiently attractive, particularly at the $140 per year, that even if you're only on Linux, I would probably give it a shot. You might want to do the $20 a month, basically see which of your games work and which of your games don't work. There are stability issues here with the Origin Access start with the Origin platform. It's not rock solid. I've had it crashing on me while I'm running it. Sometimes I got to run it a few times. When it works, it works. When it doesn't, and you got to reload. I'm not gonna say that everybody should go out there and do it, but I would say that if you are not morally opposed to wine gaming, and if you are, you probably shouldn't be listening to this podcast, because this is a mostly Linux podcast. But if you are, and you dual boot, if you dual boot, it's obviously even better because you can run everything in Windows. If you want to run it through Wine, again, it's hit and miss. What I do is I basically run the games that are rock solid in Linux through Wine, and I'll run the ones that are not as good over on my dual boot on the Windows partition. I typically like to stay in Linux, but I'm not going to deny myself an amazing game when I can just launch Windows, right? So, but this is the way to do a service of this kind. It's all inclusive, all DLC. Everything in your library, all of your existing games are upgraded. Every game you download, you never have to worry about paying extra for. You might have some skins and stuff that you might have to pay for. We know about the problems that EA had with Battlefront 2. Hopefully they've learned those lessons and have moved forward. But this is the first paid for game subscription service that I think is worthy of buying, and I give it 5 thumbs up. Anyway, that's our topic of the week. Let me come back and close out this disaster of an episode in 10 seconds. And we're back. Thank you for sticking with us here on episode 0.20. This is I think it's going to end up being a shorter version or shorter episode than our normal ones. I've changed the pattern a little bit. I've got a lot of stuff on the go here, so I may be a little off. I feel a little off this week, so thank you for sticking with us all the way through to the end. Let me just kind of go through our social media here for anybody that wants to follow us. First of all, we're at mostly_Linux on Twitter. Pop on over there and do a follow and track us along. You can also find us at mostlylinux.libsyn.com, libsyn.com. If you pop on over there, you'll find all of the audio podcasts that you can listen to, plus links to follow us on Twitter, to send us an email, to subscribe on Apple or Stitcher or Google Play, or just basically get the RSS feed and stick it into any podcast player you want. Please follow us if you're kind of listening regularly. Do a follow or a subscription. It helps us manage and understand how many people are actually watching it if you subscribe rather than just click. We're also on Reddit. We've got our own subreddit, mostly_Linux. You can pop on over there and get access to community giveaways. When our shows are up, it'll be posted there as well. We're on YouTube, and just search for Mostly Linux there. You can get our YouTube versions. We're on peertube.social as well. So search for Mostly Linux on Mostly Gaming, and subscribe over there. Subscribe everywhere. Finally, we're on. We're also on Twitch. Mostly Linux over there. We've got a nice following there of 92 followers. Thank you very much. Do a follow and catch our episodes over there. And that's it for this show. Let's put it to bed. Thank you very much once again. We'll be back next week with episode 0.21. I'm at Mostly Linux. This is on Mostly Gaming. See you next week.